Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to Warships for our Friday highlights, being the Tier 9 German heavy cruiser, the Blücher. And we're going to be talking all about her today with a bit of her playstyle, and I'm guessing in terms of how Wargaming has developed this ship with what they're thinking in mind. We're kind of getting to the point where we have been for, let's say, the last 2 years, probably, and increasingly ever so, where we're getting a little bit of the Jurassic Park experience with new ships that Wargaming is introducing into the game, Warships is introducing into the game, where you kind of get these, like Jurassic Park, where they would mix different DNAs of various dinosaurs together that technically and maybe, or morally and ethically shouldn't have been combined. They combine to get you a new species of dinosaur that never has yet before existed. That in a nutshell is where we're really at with World Warships, and I could probably actually dedicate a whole video talking about this. And so with that being said, kind of think of that way with Blücher, where you had basically these guns are Rune or Hindenburg guns, but rather you have only 8 guns versus Rune having 9 and Hindenburg having 12. And I have a clip for you guys to me fighting a Hindenburg and who comes out on top. Because for all intents and purposes, the main battery is quite the same. Granted, there are a few differences. One is that in terms of the dispersion, you have more DD-like dispersion. Even when you can compare the sigma and the horizontal and vertical dispersion values with the aiming systems, is it called mod 1? Mod 2? Yeah, mod 1 in the 3rd slot. You're only edging out Rune and Hindenburg by a bit. It's nothing that's massive. The sigma, if it's correct here on the Wild Shipbuilder, sigma is the same, being 2.05. But you get slightly better vertical and horizontal dispersion. So in terms of accuracy, mostly similar. But kind of one of the things Wargaming tweaked is they made Blücher more about the armor piercing rather than the high explosive. You still get, because these are 203s, you still get the 51mm penetration. But you're going to lack in fire chance just because the reduced number of shells compared to the high explosive fire chance for DPM compared to Rune or Hindenburg, because you're just firing less guns, 8 versus 9 or 8 versus 12. But what they did with the armor piercing is that they increased the penetration value. So what do I mean by that? Well, one of the things that they did is that they increased it's called Krupp. It's like the shell's hardness. Where you have a higher value on Blücher than you do Hindenburg or Rune. Krupp is like it as defined here. It's a constant used to tweak projectile's penetration. It represents how sturdy the projectile is. The higher the value, the higher the penetration is. So you have a higher penetration value on Blücher compared to Rune or Hindenburg. You also have slightly higher damage. You get 6100 versus 5900 on Hindenburg, as an example, or on Rune, also 5900. The other thing that they did was you have a shortened shell fuse timer, so you're not as likely to overmatch, let's say, a broadside cruiser. So you have a 0.0, let me find it here, 0.025 second fuse timer, where on Hindenburg and also on Rune it's 0.033. So that's the standard fuse time. Otherwise, you also have other ships that have 0.015. I think that's more like St. Vincent's and one of the others. So multiple other ships that have this shortened shell fuse timer. So what does Blücher do? Well, it's essentially what you're seeing me do on the screen here. We have almost over 250,000 potential damage, and we've hardly taken any damage for it. We've been playing with our engine boost, which in the upgrade and commander build video I'll do tomorrow, I'll show you that. We have over a 4-minute engine boost. We also actually have over 2 minutes plane duration time, spotter plane duration. And it's pretty boring play style with Blücher. Compared to Blücher versus Rune, I would prefer Blücher. at tier 9. If we're going to go into tier 10, then I prefer playing Hindenburg over Blücher, or playing one of the French cruisers that have a 20% engine boost versus Blücher's 15% engine boost. And the reason why I like this ship in general is because the guns are consistent and the engine boost. Otherwise, I think if Blücher didn't have an engine boost, it would be much more of a pain to play. I think when you're looking at Rune and Hindenburg, like, their theoretical damage per minute is much higher than Blücher. So if you want to play a cruiser, like, Blücher is a dockyard ship that's not necessarily about farming damage. It's more about consistent damage, and it really comes down to you utilizing the armor piercing. Like, if you don't utilize the armor piercing, you're probably going to have maybe mostly, I mean, average, let's say 80 to 100k games. Where if you utilize armor piercing, like, you can get, I've had 10k salvos on broadside cruisers, or even higher. Like, you'll see a cruiser reblap later in these clips. Broadside Ushakov, 10k salvos on him with armor piercing. More towards the, let's say, medium range of 12 to 15, where, you know, if you fire armor piercing, you're more at range. Yeah, we can probably get some decent damage, but it won't be quite the same. You also, these shells have they don't have as big of an air drag compared to Hindenburg or Rune, but their shell velocity is the same, as at least as Hindenburg. So really what you're getting here is you're getting a Hindenburg or a Rune with less guns, but more consistent guns with an engine boost. That would be about the best way I could phrase it. I mean, there's some other things to keep in mind, like, you know, here with Blücher, like, we get 8 torpedo racks, but these torpedoes are exact same as Hindenburg, but we get 4x3 racks versus 4x4 that you would get on Hindenburg, and then on Rune, you know, you only get 2x4 torpedoes on that boat. So we edge out Rune with torpedoes here when playing the Blücher effectively. So if you're looking for a ship in terms of a playstyle that's exciting, I wouldn't say Blücher is the boat for that, because that's really not what the boat comes down to. It's much more about consistently trying to use your main battery guns and knowing when to switch between high explosive and armor piercing. It's not a HE farming boat. I mean, there's other cruisers in the game that farm high explosive much better than Blücher, even at tier 9. And you're not gonna have that same consistency. You know, you're talking more about the Pan-European, like Cerberus, the French cruisers with the 20% engine boost, doing what you've seen us do this game. So that being said, the main play style I would say of Blücher is you really want to be playing flanks, because where the ship becomes more rewarding is when you're able to utilize your armor piercing. You know, you're a cruiser tier 9 in World Warships and randoms where, you know, overmatch is, you know, just as present as ever. Like, I was playing the same map earlier, and I made the mistake. I thought about putting it in here, where I wasn't paying attention how my battleships on my team was positioned, and there was a Musashi on the enemy team. And I was trying to utilize the engine boost, and I was doing it right, but I was underestimating that he wasn't actually a good shot, and then I was like purposely would, you know, juke myself into his salvos, where otherwise I just would have missed and avoided. So with Musashi's like 460s farming me, and then I look over, and then you look on the mini map, let's say D7, D8, my battleships are all hiding behind the island. So you don't want to be, unless you're really confident, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be on the flank and only the battleships or heavy cruisers on that flank can shoot at you for damage, because they don't have any other targets, right? Blücher does benefit when there's other targets around for players to focus on that take attention off of yourself, because of how your Armor scheme is you're a little more resilient to high explosive from like DDs and stuff like that, but you can easily be citadel through your deck at long range. So playing the flank is really where Blücher shines more, because there's just less of a threat of having to deal with more battleships. If you're playing in mid, you want to be more off to the side and limiting those targets on you. So you're playing the flank, you're often kiting, like we push back in and it's like, well, it's Ohio, there's a Cambridge here, you know, Cambridge has 305s. You know, here you can see a good example of us utilizing armor piercing. Cambridge has to turn in to avoid the torps from the Venom. And then we're going to get a solid AP salvo in here. As he tries to turn back into it, we still managed to get 10k salvo. Might have gotten a Citadel if he hadn't turned in just as good as he had. And then we're going to go to the next clip. There's two things to show you in this clip. One is, my favorite thing is catching a Jaeger off guard. With Blücher, one of the things that shines, where you couldn't do this as much you couldn't do it on Arun or Hindenburg, is the fact that we have this engine boost on Blücher. So if I activate the engine boost and I have this here mic flag on, our maneuverability, as I look at speed here, is 39.36 knots, so almost 40 knots. And you can quickly close the distance on destroyers with your 6 kilometer high refusing search than you could on a Hindenburg, as an example, where, like, let's say if I had the engine Sierra mic flag on a Hindenburg, we're going to go 34.12 knots. Or that's Rune, excuse me. Hindenburg would be 33.8 knots, so even slower. So we go ahead, we know we're being spotted by a destroyer, likely out on the flank. There's a Shimakaze over there, and boom, we catch Jaeger off guard. It blows my mind how easy it is, like, and how often this happens for me. Like, it doesn't matter with certain destroyer players, no matter how much concealment you give them, they will still F it up and get too close to you, and you just spot them, and then you just get a free kill. Like, ideally, you want to give minimum, I would say, 2 kilometers or more. Like, you know, when we use the engine boost and push in, 2 kilometers, like, evaporates quite quickly for the Jaeger player, and, you know, he's not sailing in a straight line away from us. He wants to get more torpedoes off before he dies. So rather than focusing on getting away, he wants to get more torpedoes off. And, you know, again, German cruiser, we're lighting you up on hydro. I know the torpedoes are coming even if I didn't have hydro. So yeah, that always blows my mind. So that's a fun play. So again, we're playing the flank. We did aggressive, and that's the other thing. So often when you're playing the flank, you're either kiting or you're pushing the flank with Blücher. It's usually how it goes. That's where I have found the most success with Blücher so far. The other thing with Blücher is, like, you know, you have these distant flatter shell arcs, so you're going to be trying to shoot over islands at time and only have shells like clip islands and things like that. But that's part of the beauty of the dispersion and the shell travel time. It doesn't take very long for these 203s to get on target compared to like 203s of a Des Moines, Salem, Buffalo, as an example. So here we have a Hindenburg. So that's the second part of why I wanted to show you this clip. Is now we're going to have a 1v1. I think there's a battleship that takes some pot shots at me, the Colombo, I think, here as well. Maybe even Cleveland chimes in. So now you get to see engagement with the Blücher, Hindenburg. And one of the things that's going to help us out here is he's broadside to us, so we do bring his hit points down to try to give us this edge. I think he just thought he was fine as he's trying to farm the battleships, but I'm trying to take the attention off my battleship and kind of more farm the Hindenburg here. Or is it the Hindenburg farming me, right? So one of the things that I realized that I wasn't doing myself a lot of favors on at the start in this game is I wasn't utilizing my speed. You know, we're juking here, we're avoiding some of the salvos that are coming in for us, but we need to be utilizing our speed. Like, Hindenburg doesn't have that, where we do have that, and I'm trying to avoid torps, so I'm looking around behind me. And I should be switching to armor piercing here, because ideally Hindenburg wants to disengage into more kiting stance, and he used the heal already here. But because of his 12 203s and my 8 203s, like, I'm basically losing the trade here. It hurts me much more with Blücher if I miss salvos or miss shells, or for him, he has more grace. His accuracy is not quite as good. I mean, it's really close to ours effectively, but it hurts me a lot more when I miss versus Hindenburg having 12 versus 8. So we just we end up losing the hit points trade there. I do. So that's why I'm like, I think Hindenburg, for all intents and purposes, if you're talking about a ship that plays a flank and does this pushing or kiting in, I would choose Hindenburg. And let's be honest, in terms of the German cruisers, and let's be honest, like when you're tier 9, how often are you going to see tier 10s and super ships? So that's how I would say. If I really wanted to be more kitey and be backing off, pushing in, I'd probably think more of the French cruisers, or with the 20% engine boost, or even Cerberus, the Pan-European, with the smoke. I don't have to worry about speeding up, slowing down, juking, because you don't get engine boost of Cerberus, that line, but you get smoke, and you just get the farm for free. So in this clip, this is us effectively pushing the flank. So there's no DD, there's no destroyer challenging us on this flank, which is great. So we've been able to discern that we're good. While Doom and the Venom is spotting for us, we've blew the North Carolina has used its damage control party. So if any of these torps cause floods, they're going to stick. And of course, if we're getting more fires, those are also going to stick. I don't find, as much as I have shells land, like I really don't find that I get as many fires as I would probably preferably want. Here's our second fire, which isn't bad out of 32 shells, to be honest. It's more easier to land those shells on a battleship that's decently close. What you end up lacking on with Blücher is if you're constantly shifting your main battery, and let's say you only have 2 of your 4 guns in action, so you've instantly taken away 4 of your 8 guns in the engagement, where to get the overall damage to be meaningful and contributing to the team, like you do realistically need to be having most times 8 guns involved in engagement. Of course, unless you're pushing in, pushing on like that Jaeger, I had to go bow in a little bit here and there, avoiding torpedoes, and yeah, of course, but try to keep all of your main batteries involved. Like that's where Buffalo shines or Annapolis shines versus like just being bow on and you've just taken out half of your firepower, right? Those ships thrive way better when you're able to utilize most of your main battery guns. So here, I was trying to see if I get up on the broadside of the Protector, but the Protector is just suiciding now. So it's like, okay, let's reevaluate our options here. And we're going to have a cruiser that comes in, a different cruiser come in from behind us through C because his concealment was good enough because we have tier 7 cruisers. So there it is. So we're going to engage with him. And versus me just running up the 9 line away, I have a cruiser with me, also a Protector, with fire 8-kilometer torpedoes. I want to be helping my cruiser as best as possible. So what do we want to do here in this situation? Well, we want to create a crossfire. Again, Blücher does best when you are able to get the sides of the targets that you want to farm. Like, there's no question that we're going to overmatch the hull of the Algerie with our 51mm penetration. But what I'd really like to do is switch to the armor piercing and get up on the broadside here. And we're going to do just that here. You can see we have the top grade gunner skill. I don't take full concealment on Blücher, and I'll get into that tomorrow when I do the upgrade commander build video. It's bye-bye. Because I want to farm more of the top grade gunner skill here. And then also, I don't see the full value. So I've given up concealment on the commander to have more skill points invested elsewhere, and I'll break that down in tomorrow's video for y'all. So as you can see from the shell tracers, we are running Lucians. I'm taking the grease the gears, so I have a faster turret traverse time. I think it's around 17 seconds with Blücher. If you don't have anything assisting, it's like 180 degree turn time of 20.7 seconds. And that's with main battery mod 3 in a 6 slot, which nerfs your main battery traverse speed, but buffs your main battery reload time. So effectively, without top grade gunner being activated or adrenaline rush, we have a 10.5 second reload time. If we start adding things in, and let's say with skills and talents, let's say we're half health, and we have top grade gunner active, then we drop down to 8.7 second reload time. So we want to be utilizing the concealment. I do take concealment on the fifth slot, as there you see we proctor one of Luchen's talents, and I'll tell you what that is in just a moment. Pull this back up. It is his main battery loader, where after you hit an enemy ship 140 times with your main battery shells, you get a negative 7.5% main battery reload time. So if I activate that, instead I still had half health with Adrenaline Rush, now we're an 8.09 second reload time. You know, here we have most of our health, so I'll just take Adrenaline Rush back up full. So we're rocking around a 9 second reload time, just under 9 second reload time here. So as we pushed the flank, we won the flank. Our team naturally lost the other side of the flank. We were more heavy on the D side, and our team kind of moved more from Alpha Bravo to Delta side. So now we're wrapping around as we pick up Confederate. And again, you can see we're utilizing the armor piercing as much as possible. I don't get the kill on the Soyuz because the Polo takes them out. But then we have North Carolina, and there's a Colorado back here and here behind the islands. And there's an enemy, I think is in Adatata. I think that's up on the A line up north, A3, I'm guessing now. But what we're going to do here is we're going to push over to Bravo Cap, because again, we want to be able to get on the sides of these targets. If I get on the side of Colorado, if I get on the side of North Carolina, that would be great. And you can see our team is basically, they're all funneling into Charlie Cap, and there's nothing, we don't benefit our team by just all yellowing in there. Like, we want to be able to give our team more firing solutions to help us win the battle, so we're going to push the flank. Now here's where those flatter shell arcs come into more play, so I'm trying to aim high enough to hit him, but I ended up, I think shooting over him there, and I'm pressing the C key, playing in between my turrets. But the more flatter shell arcs means, like, you know, Des Moines, I would be able to fire over the island here as an example, and farm the Colorado, but now I'm just going to have to bide my time and wait till more the lower side of the island as it goes down to get a salvo off. And we can use spotter plane. I haven't used spotter plane yet this match, or maybe we used it once, to be able to see a little bit better. And we're going to switch to the armor piercing here as well, because the Colorado is going out broadside, and I should have stayed with armor piercing after this salvo, because I thought he was going back in bow in now, and so I just ended up switching without zooming back in to check that, because I'm also taking gun feeder, and there he goes full broadside. And it's like, oh, okay, never mind. Well, we're going to go ahead and angle out our armor scheme. 406s. Yeah, we took 8k damage there towards the end, but that's one of the fun things here is you've seen us be able to keep our hit points. We have more hit points to spend towards the end of the game. Like, usually cruisers that have the biggest impact towards the last half of the battle are the cruisers that have more hit points to spare. Not that you should waste them, of course, and not that you should just not contribute at all in the first half of the battle. Sacred hit points as a cruiser. It's just playing smart, and there's mostly other ships. Enemy team was farming and focusing other ships more so than us the first half of this battle, even though I try to put myself in a situation to help the Protector in a clip I cut out so that the Anhalt and the New Orleans would focus me more, but then Protector just kind of W'd in and I couldn't get up past him to take some pressure off of him. So that's what you get effectively with Blücher. Is all in all, I would say it's a very balanced ship. It's not overpowered. It's not weak. As long as you're utilizing the strengths of the ship, being the engine boost and armor piercing, and a really good spotter plane, then you can make a lot happen with this ship. And when you need to push, you can push with this ship as well. So it kind of plays the push role, it plays the mid-range role, and it plays the kiting role really good. And that's kind of interesting when you think about the German cruisers in that category. So, ended up being a win as we placed with 1500 base XP. I think the most damage I've done with Blücher, like roughly 10 games or so, has been like 138,000 damage, something like that. I had a lot of games this week where the games were just over in like 6-7 minutes, and just trying to get the game that would last long was really difficult. For, you know, it's summertime, and player base perhaps is still continuing to go downhill. So matchmaking really dictates how long of a match you're going to have or not have, depending on blowout matches or just, you know, flat out steamrolls, as there was a few of those, as well as matchmaking just giving me 7 versus 7 and 10v10. So it's really fighting matchmaker to get some decent clips this week. But the ship shines the longer it plays. If you get to utilize the armor piercings, the sooner the better on broadside or angled targets, you know, not angled enough where you can't penetrate them. Then you'll see your damage numbers go up. But if you're only utilizing high explosive and Blücher, then you're not going to get a lot out of the ship. Rather, you should just play the Rune or the Hindenburg in terms of the German cruisers in that regard. So that being said, if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Until next time, take care.